CountryWide Connect, connecting farmers and growers to what they need to know to grow. Your daily innovative rural show with Andy Thompson and Sarah Miriam-Lang.
The big news of the day is that Fonterra now has a new chief executive. It is probably to no surprise. There was a lot of commentary that it would be hired internally and that Richard Allen has been in position to be able to take over. So when Pete McBride said it'll be less than a month to get through the job applications, he wasn't right, and it has come out today. So who is Richard Allen? Are farmers excited about this? To answer all of our questions, we have the chair of Fonterra Cooperative Council, John Stevenson, on the line with us. John, are we excited about this announcement?
Yeah, good morning, Sarah. And I think farmers are excited about the announcement. You know, it's been a small period since Miles has announced his resignation, but I think, you know, putting certainty in place and getting a strong internal candidate come out the other end of the process, you know, I think that's really good from a farmer's perspective.
Richard, I was talking to you offline a little bit earlier this morning when I was setting up this interview, and I said it reminds me a little bit of the All Blacks promoting from within. Is that an analogy that, you know, that is kind of makes sense?
I think that's you know, the CEO of Fonterra is a really interesting role. Obviously, you've got to have strong relationships out there in the markets and overseas with your customers, but also, you know, us as farmers, we demand really strong connection with our CEO out regions as well. So someone having the ability to be able to deliver from a customer perspective and from a farmer perspective, you know, that's a unique ability, and Richard, having been inside Fonterra for so long, I think really lends himself to being a capable performer in that role.
So it does say a lot about the direction of Fonterra, John. We did say when we wanted to have some more outside thinking, how that ended up with Mr. Spearing. Mr. Allen has been indoctrinated into the Fonterra way of life since 2008. Can you explain more about how this supports Fonterra's direction?
Yeah, we're in a unique period of time in Fonterra where, you know, we'll be looking forward, you know, heading into a post-divestment world, you know, without that mainland business and the consumer function, which has been a part of Fonterra since its inception. Rich is currently leading our ingredients business. He's done a really good job as far as I understand from that perspective. We'll be moving more towards being a B2B business, and, you know, Rich in his time within Fonterra has held a number of roles which support, I suppose, that knowledge set and being able to deliver. So, you know, I think that's probably what the board saw in terms of making this appointment.
John, obviously an internal role like this, what was the talent, do you know, any idea of the talent poll from people from outside? Was it a pretty tough process?
I think from what I understand, Andy, it's a thorough process, and, you know, the appointment of the CEO is the biggest decision that a board makes, and certainly my conversations with board members and board chair indicate that this is no different from that regard. I can't speak to the process. Fonterra is probably better to speak to the process itself, Andy, but I imagine they're looking internally and externally, you know, fairly regularly during any CEO tenure.
Yeah. John, what's the feedback from farmers in the direction of Fonterra under new leadership post the divestment? What are they saying to you that you need to keep your foot on?
I think the key thing is that Fonterra delivers on what it's promised farmers. You know, I think there's a degree of excitement out there with Fonterra being a simpler and hopefully a more repeatable business going forward. But the key thing that they're telling us is that, you know, it's important to make sure that Fonterra delivers on what was promised to farmers through that divestment roadshow and divestment process, and that we as farmers continue to see those strong returns going forward.
John, he takes over on the 1st of May. That's pretty damn quick.
It is pretty quick, Andy. I think, you know, obviously it probably would have been different if it was an external candidate, but you know, Miles is sticking around for a while. Rich and Miles know each other, so I'm assuming that's part of the reason for that. But you know, I don't have any reason from our perspective outside of the tent to believe that it'd be anything other than a smooth transition.
Yeah, he's already got his email, his signature set up, and access to the drive, Andy.
You reckon he can work Excel on the spreadsheets?
I think if the Fonterra boss can't work a spreadsheet, we are all worried.
That's why I'm not Fonterra boss.
John, it's interesting timing. Tomorrow is payday. So, of course, great news to follow great news. What are farmers looking at doing, do you believe? There's a lot of commentary out there with the majority of this capital repayment. It was incredibly, everyone's context is uniquely different.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. Farmers, will have varying degrees of shareholding, and varying degrees of size. So what we're hearing from farmers is a bit of a mix, Sarah. I think we're seeing, some are looking at debt repayment and setting themselves up for any future shocks to the dairy industry or otherwise. Certainly know of a number that are investing on farm in terms of on-farm efficiencies. I think we're seeing, strong interest in the tech sector on how to make farming more efficient and easier. And we're also seeing a bit of expansion as well in terms of farmers going out there and looking at either additional bits of land to add to their businesses or off-farm businesses as well. So a real mix, but also I think it's important to note alongside that capital return, it's in return for us selling something that we're not going to have in the future. So whilst it's a big chunk of money, it's because we've sold something.
John, I'd imagine there's potentially a little bit of succession planning underway as well with this one. It'd be a good opportunity, I would have thought, for some farms.
Yeah, and those of us involved in the industry know how tough those succession conversations can be. A bit of additional capital coming into those family businesses does make that process a lot easier. Farms are big assets, expensive assets, and this capital return certainly has helped a couple of succession discussions.
One thing I've been critical of, John, has been more commentary to Fonterra farmers of what obligations from your customers, such as Nestle and Danone, is going to come at farmers in the next 5 years to prepare them to spend the money in the right direction. Would you say the same?
Oh, it's hard to say because there's, sort of customer demands and consumer demands can change, on the head of a pin, particularly overseas. So I think, it would be a dangerous position for Fonterra to be in, to be telling farmers or directing farmers where they think they should be spending their money. I think farmers do pick up those signals. You are seeing investment in compliance type activities and getting ahead of the curve in some cases. But I think farmers, rightly so, should make their own decisions. And we need to continue to deliver a product that the customer wants. And if we don't, and they don't buy it, then our returns go down.
John, obviously, we're coming to the end of the 2026 season. Signals are looking okay going into 26, 27, I suppose, but we don't really know, do we? All bets are off. And also the potential for a super El Nino, which is a little bit frightening if you can remember back, and I can, back into 73, 83, 98, 99. Those were very, very tough years for rural New Zealand.
Yeah, I certainly remember the last lot of those events, Andy, and walking around carrying the posts on the top of our dry hills that you couldn't even dig them into. I think those messages that there is a lot of milk out there in the market. There's no denying that. We've been fortunate to see demand hold up, but I think it's a bit of a call out for our cooperative model, probably, because when you do look overseas where those large milk volumes are coming through, some other corporate entities in different geographies, they just don't take them, or they penalise farmers for providing more milk. If we have a good day here and we produce a lot of milk, Fonterra takes it and pays us for it. So that's good, and it's a good strength of being part of a cooperative that's strong.
We've just recently done the special report in CountryWide on, the power of the cooperatives and what it looks like for the next generation. And it's not until you see, is it Bob Cutter, the the politician in Australia on social media talking about, the undue fairness and unfairness to farmers in Australia, and how, without a cooperative, how much they suffer, and that they are at that. We do forget that. Fonterra farmers don't seem to be needed to be reminded of the value of their cooperatives as much as others.
Oh, I'll probably take a different view, Sarah. I think we put in a real effort as a council, and I know Fonterra does, to try and bring that message through to our farmers. And I think the further away we get from the formation of Fonterra, the further away we get from the reason for creating Fonterra. The uniqueness of a milk price model that delivers a market price for milk is something we continually need to remind our farmers of. Certainly producing a perishable product, we don't have a lot of negotiating power unless we own the processing side of things as well.
Yeah. John, thank you so much for joining us on Countrywide Connect. John Stevenson, the chair of the Fonterra Cooperative Council there. We look forward to having you on the show again soon.
Thanks, team. Appreciate it.
CountryWide Connect, connecting farmers and growers to what they need to know to grow. Your daily innovative rural show with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lack.